I actually thought that the Colts had a pretty good draft, and then it was kind of like the intern took over, made a few bad decisions, and then Chris Ballard took back over and fixed it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another YouTube video. I guess this isn't an episode of No Butts About It. I am your host, Josh Butts, and today we're going to be talking about the Indianapolis Colts and their draft. We got some draft grades coming right up here. So let's get into it. But first, let's talk about how the Colts got the picks that they did. They made quite a few trades during the 2024 NFL draft. So, first of all, they traded back from number 46 overall with the Carolina Panthers to acquire picks 52, 142, and 155. Then they traded up from pick 82 to pick 79 with the Arizona Cardinals, who also acquired pick 191 in this year's draft. Then the final trade that the Colts made was a fifth round pick, which was pick 155 overall, to the Philadelphia Eagles for fifth round pick 164 and sixth round pick 201. So they traded that pick that they got from the first trade they did and got picks 164 and picks 201. And we'll see who they ended up picking up with those. But first of all, we got to go through the first round. And that's because the Colts broke a trend that was happening that was really weird during this year's draft. And that was not a single defensive player went until the Colts pick at pick 15. And there were quite a few guys who we thought might even be top 10 picks. They just sat there. And Chris Ballard was very excited when he got this guy, Latu at pick 15. And I understand why. This is a guy who has great potential, and to get him at pick 15 is a steal. He was medically retired by Washington following a neck injury in 2021, and that likely also caused him to fall in the draft. That injury history is something that teams worry about a lot. He's also 23 years old already as a rookie, so that's kind of old for a rookie, but it's something that teams are going to have to get used to with COVID, that extra year. A lot of rookies are going to be older, at least these next few years. So I'm not super worried about the age there, but I do understand the issue. PFF has him graded at a 96.3. So obviously he is a fantastic edge rusher. I think personally, the neck issue isn't going to be that big of a problem, primarily because right after he got medically retired from Washington, he went and played rugby. He was like, hey, I had this neck issue, but I'm ready to compete, man. I like hitting people. I'm gonna go beat some people, and I'm not even gonna wear pads this time. So he got crazy with it. But he ended up going to UCLA, where he had a great season, and his tape and production show way better than what his athleticism at the combine did. He didn't have a great combine, and that could have been another thing that contributed to him falling. But I don't know how you can watch his tape and think, yeah, this guy isn't good. I personally think that this guy's ceiling is a Myles Garrett type player. That's where he's going to be. He is going to be one of the top edge rushers in the NFL within the next 2 years. And the Colts couldn't get back to that pass rusher identity on defense. I mean, think about the Colts defense like a decade ago, and their whole identity was the pass rush. Think about guys like Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney. That's what I think about when I think about the Colts defense. And it feels like they've kind of gotten away from that. But this pick, I think, is Chris Ballard saying, let's get back to that. And I like this move. If he can stay healthy, Latu has great potential. And that's why I'm going to give this a B plus pick, because while I think it could be an A pick, I think it could easily be an A plus pick. I do have to take into account that injury history and the possibility that he re-injures himself, and that neck injury is something that, it could pop up at any time. So if it weren't for the neck injury, though, this would be an easy A pick, and I think Colts fans should still be excited about it, albeit hesitant. Injuries are going to happen no matter what, right? So B plus pick for Latu. Big fan of that pick. Excited to watch him play for the Colts this season. Next up is someone who added to an offense who I thought couldn't be added. It could be added to, but I was excited for this offense already, right? I was excited to see Anthony Richardson throwing to Josh Downs, Michael Pittman Jr., Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. This was going to be a time. And Anthony Richardson's going to be getting mentored by Joe Flacco this season. The Colts really said, hey, we believe in the guys that we have on our team. And they didn't sign a ton of people at free agency. They mainly re-signed guys they already had. And then they said, we're going to build through the draft. And that's what this is. Pick 52, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. And I threw the wrong graph up there, so if you caught the grade, good for you. But Adonai Mitchell, pick 52 out of Texas. He is 21 and a half years old with a PFF grade of 71.9. And like I said, I was already excited for this Colts offense, but now they have added someone who was prospected as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, and now they're going to be able to use him as a wide receiver 3, essentially. I think this will allow them to have another slot option besides Josh Downs. It will also allow them to have another outside option besides Michael Pittman Jr., keep those double teams away from Michael Pittman Jr., who they just extended. I think this is a fantastic move. He's a vertical threat who can grab those competitive catches, allowing Alec Pierce to then be relegated back to wide receiver 4 and be just a pure deep threat. He's not a guy who's going to go up and get those competitive passes, but if he can get open deep, Alec Pierce can be a threat, and the signing of Adonai Mitchell allows them to do that. Now, there were concerns about his temperament. However, after some research, it seems that a lot of those were tied back to his type 1 diabetes. Now, I don't have type 1 diabetes, and I only know a few people that do, but from my understanding, when your blood sugar gets low and you have type 1 diabetes, and again, I'm not a doctor, it can cause you to be moody at times. And that kind of seemed to be what was happening with Adonai Mitchell. Now, part of this is going to be whether or not he's willing to take the advice and stuff. But I think that the Indianapolis Colts dietitians and trainers should be able to easily take care of his type 1 diabetes, make sure his blood sugar is staying at a proper level, making sure those glucose levels are good, and making sure that he isn't getting that moodiness. And ultimately, I think that this is going to open up another level of the Colts offense for Anthony Richardson. And I'm even more excited to watch these guys play now. I think this is going to be a fun season to be an Indianapolis Colts fan. That's all I really have for that signing. And like I said, I threw this up earlier on accident, but I'm giving this an A- because I can't really give it an A+ because I don't believe in that with prospecting. But geez, this is a great signing for the Indianapolis Colts, for Anthony Richardson, for everyone involved. I believe this is going to give you your guy who's going to help you get those competitive passes and bring a new layer of offense to the Indianapolis Colts. Next up, we get into round 3, and that's kind of where we start to get away from guaranteed starters and get into these high-end starters. And that's where Matt Goncalves comes in, and he is an offensive tackle out of the University of Pittsburgh, another 23-year-old with a PFF grade of 72.2. I understand this pick. I think it's a good pick. It's not a out of the park pick, but that's kind of what you're going to get in round 3. You're going to get the guys who it's like, okay, maybe eventually he becomes a starter. And that's what we have here. I think ultimately he's likely a high-end backup. He's not that quick out of his stance, but that can be worked on. Teams have worked on that. If you have a good O-line coach, you can develop that. You can fix that. He's also very versatile. He can play both tackles and guard if need be. So that allows your O-line to kind of work and move around with injuries. And O-line is one of those things where it's always great to have depth in that room. O-line and corners, in my opinion, are the two most important rooms to have depth. And this pick shows that the Colts understand that and that they are going to bring in guys who aren't only going to be able to be quality depth, but they're also going to be versatile in that depth. So for that reason, I'm giving the Matt Goncalves pick a B grade. I could see him eventually being a starter, but I don't see him being a clear-cut starter in the NFL his rookie season. But that could change as things go and as injuries happen. He also has good leadership potential and was a team captain at Pitt. So I think he could be good for that locker room in general. The Colts didn't stray away too far from the O-line at all going into round 4 at pick 117. They picked Wisconsin guard Tanner Bortolini, who he kind of complements Matt Goncalves in this way because while Goncalves can play tackle and guard, Bortolini can play center and guard. So you've kind of now got both depth there for versatility's sake. Bortolini also had the highest combine athletic score of all centers. He had 1 sack allowed in 2023. He's also fairly young. He's only 22 years old. He's not even 22 yet as of the making of this video. He had a PFF grade of 65.9, so not fantastic, but he shows promise, right? And going back to that O-line depth and versatility, complementing Goncalves, he has played every position on the line except for left tackle. So if there's a ton of injuries, you could have your center playing right tackle, and he's got experience there. Probably not a situation you want to get into because he doesn't have super long arms to play tackle, but he can do it if absolutely need be. Something I noticed when watching his tape, and I didn't like deep dive into any of these guys by any means, but of what I saw, he doesn't always meet rushers and sometimes gets thrown off by the bigger defensive tackles, especially the nose tackle type guys. So sometimes they just kind of push him off to the side. But I think getting in that weight room, putting on some mass, that'll help him out. And this is going to be a depth piece for the Indianapolis Colts anyway. And for that reason, I'm giving the Tanner Bortolini round 4 pick a B as well. I think you get some good value here. Again, not a clear-cut starter in the NFL, but when I get to these types of rounds, I'm looking for those guys who I think I'd feel fairly comfortable going into a game if need be, and Tanner Bortolini has the potential to be one of those guys eventually. Next up in round 5, the Colts kind of once again, they jumped back. They got another high-value pick, in my opinion, and at pick 142, they took Oregon State wide receiver Anthony Gould. Now, you might be thinking, Josh, we just talked about this. We have Michael Pittman Jr., we have Josh Downs, we have Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce. Why are we drafting another wide receiver in the 5th round? Well, I'm going to tell you why. The NFL changed the rules regarding kick return this offseason, and though everyone seems to be confused about it, ultimately it does make the kick return a bigger part of the game. Anthony Gould, in my opinion, was not drafted to be a wide receiver in the NFL. I think the Colts are one of the first teams who looked at the rule change and said, We want to get stronger on special teams. We want to be one of those teams where special teams is our dominant force. So they took this 23-year-old with a 73.9 PFF grade who can be a depth wide receiver piece. He can be a great depth wide receiver piece. And they said, we are going to make him a kick returner. At Oregon State, he was a fantastic punt returner. One of the best special teams players in this draft class. He had success as a punt returner, and then they're going to put him at kick returner. That's my prediction. That I don't believe the Colts have confirmed that yet, but that is what I believe is going to happen. That's what I believe the Colts should do. This also prevents you from putting guys like Josh Downs, who I believe was back there last year. And I don't want to say a more disposable player, but you don't want your starting wide receiver being the guy back there with 11 big men rushing at him, trying to tackle him all at the same time, right? So putting Anthony Gold back there gives you a bit more to work with. And he has the talent, he has the experience. So assuming he can transition that punt return experience over to kick returning, and I know they're not the exact same, but assuming that can kind of be worked with as with the special teams coach, I think that could be a very good pick. Also, I think he can provide depth if Mitchell or Downs goes down for 1 and 2 games, and there won't be a huge drop off. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of a talent difference there, but I think that Anthony Gold could help them get through 1 to 2 games. I don't think he could quite back up Michael Pittman Jr., but it looks like Alec Pierce is his backup on the depth chart anyway. So Anthony Gold is going to be backing up those other guys. And so for that reason, I think this is a very high value pick at this point in the draft. I mean, we're in round 5. You've got a guy who we've already found a spot for him on the team, even if it's special teams. I'm going to give that an A-. I think that that is a great move. And yes, it's not flashy, but you're not going to get flashy in round 5 of the draft. And so I'm very excited to see how the Colts decide to use Anthony Gold out of Oregon State. And let's see what else they did in round 5. The Colts had 3 round 5 picks. That was the first one, Anthony Gold. Next up, we have pick 151. They took the Missouri safety Jaylen Carli. And I actually listed him as a linebacker on my sheet because I think that's what he's going to end up playing in the NFL at pick 151. He's 22 years old. His PFF grade was not available. So tells you kind of where we're at. He adds depth at the linebacker position. Again, assuming he moves to linebacker. The reason I don't think he can play corner or safety in the NFL is because he is going to get beat, in my opinion. I don't think he's fast enough to stay with NFL level wide receivers. And as soon as they get past him, they're just going to be open. He takes bad angles when he's chasing these guys to tackle them, but he does have the mass to be a pass rusher. And so the Colts need linebacker depth anyway, because there isn't much behind Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, and Ronnie Harrison Jr. If one of those guys goes down, you're kind of, really Zaire Franklin's your only guy that you're like worried about. Speed and Ronnie Harrison Jr. are kind of average right now, but we'll see how this defense kind of meshes this year. The closer you get to the line at that linebacker position from safety, the less chance for mistakes. And that's where I'm going to put Jaylen Carli. I don't like him as a DB. If the Colts keep him as a DB, I would be very surprised. But we will see what they end up doing. Not a lot to say about this pick other than I just think he needs to be a linebacker in the NFL. And for that, I give this grade a C. He has potential, but he was also drafted as a safety, and he won't be a safety in the NFL. I'm not sure what the Colts are going to do with this pick. I don't know if he's even great depth as a safety, but we will see. And this is kind of where I got into that, it kind of looked like the intern took over and we didn't know what was going on for a minute. And other than the Anthony Gold pick, round 5 was a rough one, in my opinion. And with pick 164, the Colts took a 24-year-old with a PFF grade of 76.9. They took Jaylen Simpson out of Auburn, another DB. This guy's a cornerback. He's an aggressive tackler, and sometimes he gets hurt by that fact. Sometimes he is a bit too aggressive going in for the tackle, and he misses the tackle completely. Kind of like when you go to hit stick in Madden. Yep, that's what happens with this guy. But he does have very good instincts, quick change of direction. He's kind of tiny, though, and he gets pushed around by receivers. Your bigger T. Higgins, like Michael Pittman Jr. is probably going to have a heyday with him in practice. But I this was another pick that I wasn't super excited about. He can stay with wide receivers better than Carli's, though, partially due to him being smaller and he can move faster. This is another B minus. This is a B minus pick. I could see him maybe being some good depth, but he's not going to be a starter in the NFL. Kind of not an exciting pick. I don't even know if he'd be great depth in the NFL either. We'd have to see how he does in camp. Next up is pick 201. And the Colts took Marshall, cornerback. They're trying to build cornerback depth. One of these guys is going to make the roster as a cornerback, that's for sure. And that is Micah Abraham, pick 201, 23 years old, out of Marshall. His PFF grade was not available. Another older guy. He is not great in man coverage. This is a guy who I would only really put in the field when we are running a zone coverage scheme. However, in his zone coverage scheme, he sometimes completely abandons his zone and tries to get takeaways, which you want your guy to get takeaways, but at the same time, you don't want him like trying. It's hard. It's hard, right? Because it's hard because you don't want your guy reacting, but you also don't want him completely abandoning his zone to try and get takeaways that aren't there. So, it's one of those things like, if it works, he's a hero, but if it doesn't, he's an idiot. And that's kind of what you're going to get with Micah Abraham. If receivers run by him, he's done. He's toast. But he does have ball hawking ability. Sometimes it's a detriment to him. For that reason, he gets a C minus pick. I don't see him being super great. Can't even use him in man coverage, in my opinion. Zone, he needs more discipline. The defensive coordinator in Indianapolis is going to need to keep this guy under wraps. Now, finally, the Colts' final pick of 2024 was defensive tackle Jonah Lealo. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, sir, but you were picked 234, age 22, no PFF grade. I really like this pick. I am very excited about this pick. I think that he could be one of the most high value picks behind Anthony Gold, who was picked in round 5. He's a very athletic defensive tackle. His main negative is that he doesn't have mass. So guess what the Colts are going to do? They're going to get him in the weight room. They're going to get him on a diet. They are going to build this guy's muscle up. And he gets to sit behind some of the best defensive tackles in the NFL, in DeForest Buckner, Raekwon Davis, and Grover Stewart, who the Colts brought back. He doesn't even need to start this year. He can just chill. He can learn. He can be a rotational piece, maybe. He has very active feet, allows him to work around slow centers. He's just a quick guy. Obviously, adding mass may slow that down a little bit, but he knows how to use his feet to trick the offensive lineman. He's able to take on the double teams, knock those guys to the side, but sometimes due to that lack of strength, he isn't able to always push them down. And he has an obsession with getting to the ball carrier. This is the guy who you see once he gets past that O-line, his arms are flailing and he's trying to get to the ball carrier. That's all he wants. He's like a toddler chasing after the ball, and I love it. I think if he can put on mass and he can sit 1 or 2 seasons, even just right behind Buckner, Davis, and Stewart, just chill, just learn the game plan, learn the scheme. We could get back once again to that Colts kind of pass rush defense like we talked about in round one. We started round one with a pass rusher in Latu, and we're finishing in round 7 with another pass rusher in Jonah Lealo. He's only 22 years old. He's got time. Colts fans, do not sleep on this guy just because he was taken in round 7. For that reason, I am giving this a B grade. Is it a perfect pick? No. But what else were you going to take in round 7? I think this is my second favorite pick in terms of value that you could get in this draft at this point. Anthony Gold is probably my favorite that the Colts took. And that's not my favorite player. Let's be clear. I think Adonai Mitchell is clearly my favorite pick. But I'm saying in terms of value of what you're going to get in this draft, Jonah Lealo in the 7th round is probably my second favorite pick. Anthony Gold in the 5th is probably my first for value. So that's what we have out of the guys that the Colts drafted. The Colts have signed, I believe, 7 undrafted free agents so far, including quarterback Keaton Slovis, quarterback Jason Bean, kicker Spencer Schrader, wide receiver Xavier White, running back Trent Penix, offensive lineman Dalton Tucker, and linebacker Craig Young, who is actually from the same area as me. So I am especially rooting for him. We talked about how the Colts need a little bit of linebacker depth as well. So I'd like to see maybe Craig Young get a chance in Indianapolis, and that'd be exciting. Another 260 gang guy. So thank you all for watching. If you made it this far into the video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments, especially if you're a Colts fan. What pick are you most excited for? Is there someone who maybe no one is talking about? Maybe you're excited about these Jaylen Carli's and Jaylen Simpson pick. Maybe I did them dirty. Let me know. Also, let me know if you agree with me, because I love it when people agree with me. I think most people do. But until next time, go do something nice for someone.